Okay, so as I'm doing this, I'm noticing that this thing is not that complicated, especially if you're familiar with functions and for loops, but it is a great skill or tool to have. I believe that even within Python, it has the same functionality. So take note of that. So the map function, at least it's the first version of what we're doing. The map function allows us to essentially apply a function on a vector or a list without using a for loop. So look at this. We have the albums of Kendrick Lamar. That's cool. And the actual function that we're going to look, or at least use just so that we can learn what's going on here, is the number of characters within the album. Okay, and so when we run this, okay, it'll take the actual input. So the first input of the function is the actual vector, and then the second input is the actual function that we're using. Okay, so this is going to count the number of characters within the actual album name. So let's see. It's supposed to display. It's supposed to display. Oh, it's not supposed to. I didn't show it. That's why. Okay. Maybe that's not funny. Now this is supposed to display. And come to find out, purrr is a package within tidyverse. So you don't necessarily have to even focus on that. So at least we can count damn, and damn has 5, so at least we know that's kind of correct. That's correct. The thing is, this avoids us of, requiring to, this avoids us from actually just having to write a for loop. So we would have to do for I in 1 to, I think I can even let's do it a couple of ways. I'm going to do it 1 to length of albums, okay, and then what you would do is you would have to sit there and say and print in char of album, and then you have to index it with the I. So this looks clunky. I mean, and come to find out, there is a way for you to actually test how fast a function is and do a comparison, which is fine. But in this situation, doing it this way allows, we know that this way is, preferred, and it actually is faster than the for loop. Let me try one more way. I think if I don't have to do it this way. Let's see if I can just do I and, oh, okay, that's a little embarrassing. That's fine. Notice that when I actually did it, it returned to me a vector. All right. Actually, well, it didn't return a vector. This is just returning, and this is printing it out. So this is not storing it. So if I needed to store this, I needed to say album title. I'm going to say new, whatever. I have to save it as a vector. I can save it as a list, as a vector. And then every single time I run through this, I would have to concatenate them. Oh, it's embarrassing. Okay, I would have to concatenate. So album title new is equal to C. And then I'll say album title new, comma, so it's going to take that list and add each of the links together as that vector. If I do this, is it? Well, that was fun. Okay, so now I actually have this information stored within the vector. Again, it's kind of clunky. But in this situation, it returns to me a list. Okay, so if I print out a list, did it do what I wanted to do? It didn't do, because I didn't do nchar. Sorry, nchar. So I say, what is going on? Didn't look like. No, it has multiple. That should work. Alright, so what I could do is there's a bunch of maps. I'm going to see if I can just return it as apply function, each element of the function to a vector. I think if I actually provide map vec, I don't mind embarrassing myself here. This might not. Oh, no, that makes sense. So if I run this, it's actually called vector. Okay, then it gives it to me as a vector rather than a list. So as you can see that this is one line of code, whereas this is 1, 2, 3, 4 lines of code. And it looks better. Okay, it looks better. It's easy to understand. So that's with vectors. Okay, that's with one vector. Come to find out, you can actually implement this with 2 vectors. I didn't teach you this. Could have, but there's something called a nested for loop. You can imagine. Well, this is one way of answering this. Could be a nested for loop, especially if it's the same length. But if it's different lengths of the different albums, so right now we're looking at Kendrick Lamar's albums and the year that they came out. If they were of different lengths, we would want to do a nested for loop. But since it's the same length, we could actually do just one for loop and apply this ideology. But what's nice about this is that when I run this, I can just run this function over here and have 2 inputs and not have to do any loops. So when I run this, okay, get album info, album, don't embarrass me. I'm gonna embarrass myself. That works, okay? So that, that's telling us that Cookie Kid, Mad City was released in 2012. I don't know if you all were born at that time, but that's when the album was made. And I would argue if I do underscore vec, this should work. Hold on. Yes, it worked. Turn into a vector. Okay, good. I'm going to show you something that's quite different. So if you're not familiar with Python, you probably haven't heard of this. We'll see how this goes in terms of implementing this. But it's something that's called an anonymous function, where I would argue this line of code as well as this line of code is a lot, and it's not necessarily needed. What I could do is, instead of doing this function, this entire function, I can just take what I'm trying to do, the actual action, what I'm trying to do, and place it there. Instead of doing, it's not going to know what album and year are, but it knows the first vector is, and let me show this to you so you can understand my logic, map to vec, but the first element is x's, it's these elements that belong to x, and then this element that belongs, the next one is the element that belongs to y. And I'm not saying the dot intentionally because all I have to do is take dot x, whoa, wowzers, dot x, and then changes to dot y, and the function will automatically know what I'm referring to. Okay, so I'm gonna run this. Okay, well that kind of makes sense. Dot x object not found. Let's see something. Okay, I found potentially what the issue is. So before the anonymous function, and again, I don't know if I clearly stated what anonymous function is. Anonymous function means it has no name, meaning that you're not giving, you're not giving it a function. You're actually just saying what you should do with the information I'm giving you. But when you're doing an anonymous function within R, you have to do a tilde. Okay, let's see how this rolls. Alright, let's try one more thing. My part is out the window. After looking at it, I'm laughing. Of course, of those that saw that. I get nervous when I make these videos sometimes, Okay, this should work. Yikes! Bam, there we go. Okay. And so we can erase this. We don't even need this. But what happens here is that what it's doing it's essentially iterating over the vectors, but in a way that's more efficient and faster than working through a for loop. Okay. All right. So that's that. And then here we're returning a vector. This time, which I would argue is a little bit more important. Ideally, if it could be returned as a data frame, this map function. So map allows you to return it as a data frame. Map underscore df allows you to return it as a data frame. And so we can take the albums and split it. Come to find out, only one of those actually has a comment in it. So this is going to be a really interesting data frame. So the function is not anonymous. We're actually calling it split title, and I'm assuming you read it. Split title means that we're actually going to split the album into two title and subparts. So therefore, for the second two albums are not going to have a second part, or at least a subtitle. Okay, so let's see what this looks like. But this is going to be in the format of a data frame. Like I said, what's interesting is that this purrr functionality is bigger than what I'm giving you right now. And it is what it is. That's fine. I think that this is at least a solid foundation for what we're going to do with the remaining of this class. I hope that is good, and thank you for your time.